Millionaire pretends to be unconscious, and what he heard from his maid left him in shock. The sharp, stabbing pain in his chest was the first thing Ethan Caldwell felt when consciousness crept back in. The metallic smell, the steady beeping of heart monitors, the blinding white hospital lights, everything blended into a hazy, disorienting fog. But even as he lay motionless on the hospital bed, the one thing Ethan did perfectly was pretend to be unconscious. He kept his eyelids heavy, his breathing slow and shallow, every muscle in his face frozen as if carved from stone. Only his ears remained alert, picking up even the faintest sounds. He knew he had to stay calm because the truth behind that crash might have been darker than he imagined. Images of his white Tesla skidding off the road and slamming into the guardrail near the Bear Mountain Bridge flashed through his mind. The sound of metal collapsing, airbags exploding, and his own breath being knocked out. It all hit him when he was on the way to confront Marcus Hale, his closest friend and CFO, about $1.4 million missing from the company's foundation account. Ethan had trusted Marcus for 15 years, trusted him like family. But numbers don't lie. He never made it to the office. As the paramedics rushed him into the ER, Ethan faintly remembered hearing two nurses talking just feet away. Did his wife call yet? Yeah, but she only asked if his condition was serious enough to trigger the life insurance. She didn't ask if he's okay? No, it was disturbingly cold. A chill ran through Ethan, not from his injuries, but from the realization that Vanessa, his wife of less than 2 years, may have never truly loved him. Later, Dr. Bennett, Ethan's personal physician for over 12 years, explained his injuries. Minor concussion, a few fractured ribs, but nothing life-threatening. Ethan would recover fully with rest. But Ethan knew the moment he returned home fully awake, he'd never uncover the truth. Those whispered comments about Vanessa, the insurance, the apathy, gnawed at him. And then a reckless idea surfaced. Dangerous, but necessary. When the room was empty except for the two of them, Ethan whispered to Dr. Bennett, "I need you to help me. Pretend I'm worse than I am. I need to know who's really on my side." The doctor froze, stunned. Ethan pushed on, voice raspy but firm. "Something's wrong with Vanessa and Marcus. I need to watch them." "Ethan, you just survived a major accident. Please, I need the truth." Under the harsh white hospital lights, a decision was made. Dr. Bennett sighed deeply, then nodded. Every medical chart would report that Ethan was semi-conscious, slow to respond, unable to communicate clearly, requiring constant supervision. The entire staff would follow the script. 2 days later, Ethan was placed into a private ambulance headed back to his Westchester estate. The New York sky hung gray above him, buildings smearing across the window as the vehicle moved. Ethan lay motionless, but his mind was sharper than ever. He was ready to listen, ready to observe. And when the truth finally came for him, he would be awake enough to meet it head-on, no matter how brutal it might be. The private ambulance rolled to a stop at the gates of the Caldwell estate just as the Westchester sky faded into a deep lavender. The house stood tall and silent, a cold monument watching over him. Ethan lay motionless on the stretcher, aware only of the dull thud of the paramedic's footsteps and the soft rumble of wheels traveling across the stone pathway, like sounds from someone else's dream. The double walnut doors swung open, revealing the wide-lit foyer, and the first thing he noticed was the absence, the unmistakable emptiness where Vanessa should have been. No hurried footsteps, no trembling voice calling his name, no hands reaching for him in fear. Only silence. And strangely, he didn't feel surprised anymore. Only the sting of a truth he had always sensed but never dared to look at directly. They carried him upstairs into the master bedroom, a place that once held their most intimate moments. Now, under the faint glow of dusk, it felt foreign, hollow, as if he had stepped into the abandoned shell of someone else's life. When the paramedics left, Ethan opened his eyes to a narrow slit, just wide enough to see without being seen. That was when he heard it, the slow, deliberate click of Vanessa's heels. She walked in with her usual cloud of expensive perfume, wearing a silk dress that hugged her like she was posing for a magazine instead of visiting a husband who nearly died. She paused at the foot of the bed, studying him the way someone examines an object that has become inconvenient. Her phone vibrated, and her entire demeanor shifted in an instant. Her voice melted into something honeyed, warm, almost tender, an emotion Ethan had never been granted. "Hey, baby." The words sliced through him like ice. A man's voice answered, unmistakable even through the muffled speaker. Marcus, his closest friend, his brother in everything except blood. Vanessa lowered her voice, but the room was too quiet, and Ethan heard every word. "Don't worry, love. The doctor said he could stay like this for weeks, maybe longer. No, he can't hear anything. They said near zero response." She paused, then let out a soft laugh, a sound Ethan had never once heard from her. $5 million in life insurance, Marcus. We just need to be patient." The air thickened in his lungs. Vanessa's voice sharpened, her mask slipping. "I only pretend to be the perfect mom because Noah and Emma are glued to him. Kids are exhausting. He loves that perfect family image, so I play along. When this is over, we'll be free." Free? The word tore something loose inside him. She hung up, checked her lipstick and her phone's camera, and walked out without sparing him a glance. The click of the closing door echoed like a quiet confirmation that the marriage he thought he had was nothing more than smoke. Moments later, 2 small sets of footsteps raced down the hall. "Mom, can we see Daddy? Please? I just want to kiss him." Emma's tiny voice wavered. "No!" Vanessa snapped. "He's sleeping. Go somewhere else and stop bothering me." The sound of Noah's muffled sob dug deeper into Ethan's chest than any fractured rib. He longed to rise, to hold them, to tell them their dad was right there. But he had to wait. He had to see the truth through to the end. Night finally settled over the house when the door opened again. This time, it was Rosa Martinez, the housekeeper who had worked for the family for 3 years. She stepped inside like a soft breeze, carrying warm water, clean linens, and her steady calm. "Mr. Caldwell, I don't know if you can hear me," she whispered, "but I'm here." She adjusted his blankets, brushed his hair gently aside, her touch warm and maternal. For the first time that day, Ethan felt something loosen in his chest. A simple certainty settled over him. Some people are born to give, and some people never learn to love anything but themselves. The gentle warmth Rosa left in the room the night before still lingered faintly in the air, even after she walked out. Ethan lay still, staring at the soft yellow glow on the wall, feeling both heavy and strangely comforted. He didn't know when sleep took him, only that when he opened his eyes the next morning, that fragile sense of peace evaporated. Something darker was coming, and it arrived in the fragile shape of Rosa herself. The door opened quietly, yet Ethan heard her shaky breath before she even stepped inside. Morning light filtered through the curtains, revealing a pale face and swollen eyes, eyes that had clearly cried through the night. She didn't move like the calm, steady Rosa from last night. She rushed forward too fast, and the tray of warm towels slipped from her hands, clattering against the floor in a sharp metallic echo. "Oh my God," Rosa whispered, sinking to her knees, hands trembling as she tried to pick everything up. Ethan kept his breathing even, but his eyes followed her every gesture. Something terrible had happened. He could feel it in the way her shoulders shook, in the way she avoided looking at his face, as if any additional weight would crush her. She placed the towels on the table, but instead of standing tall like always, she collapsed into the chair beside his bed, burying her face in her palms. Her shoulders shook harder, her breaths coming out in broken gasps. "I'm sorry, Mr. Caldwell. I shouldn't be like this. I'm so sorry." Her voice cracked. Her voice. Then her phone rang. Rosa's head jerked up. She blinked at the screen, and all color drained from her face. She answered, trying to straighten her voice, failing completely. "Hello, I'm here." Ethan recognized the tone on the other end immediately. A doctor. It was Dr. Elaine Porter, the pediatric oncologist Rosa had mentioned once in passing. "Yes, doctor, please, say it again. I didn't hear it clearly." A long pause. Then the words struck the air like a hammer. "Leukemia. High risk. About 3 months." Rosa clutched her shirt near her heart. Her eyes widened. Her breath caught in her throat. No, she's only 7. Sophia is just 7. Ethan felt his blood freeze. How much will the treatment cost?" Rosa whispered, clinging to the question as if it were her last thread of hope. When she heard the answer, her knees buckled. $180,000? A strangled sound escaped her. I make $2,200 a month. How can I—" "Doctor," Porter explained the treatment plan, the urgency, the slim but real chance if they started immediately. But the words washed over Rosa like a distant storm, loud, terrifying, yet impossible to grasp. "Yes, I understand. I'll manage. Thank you, doctor." The phone slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a small thud that tore into Ethan. Rosa knelt to pick it up, but her legs gave out, and she stayed there, hands pressed against the floor, tears dripping onto the wood. "My little girl is only 7, she sobbed, her voice trembling with raw desperation. Please let there be a miracle." Ethan's chest tightened painfully. He wanted to sit up, to tell her he would help, that he would never let her daughter walk this fight alone. But he had to stay still, had to protect the truth he was uncovering about his own life. Rosa lifted her head, looking toward the bed, not at him, but toward the faint hope he symbolized. "If Mr. Caldwell woke up, I know he would help. He has always been kind, but I can't ask. He's suffering so much already. I can't put more on him." Her words cut deeper than any betrayal Vanessa had delivered. Ethan thought his own pain was unbearable, until he witnessed Rosa's. Compared to her, he was just a man, broken by deceit. She was a mother, staring at an abyss that threatened to take her only child. In the dim morning light, Ethan felt tears slip silently down his temples. He couldn't wipe them away. He couldn't speak. For the first time since the accident, Ethan's tears weren't for himself. They were for the woman weeping beside him, and for the little girl fighting for her life. Rosa's tears still hung in the air long after she rose to continue her work. Ethan remained utterly still, but inside his chest, something tightened painfully. When Rosa wiped her face and forced herself back into routine, her movement steadier but her eyes still red, he knew she was holding herself together by sheer will. Every time she glanced toward the door, Ethan sensed the silent prayer in her heart. Then came the soft, familiar sounds of small footsteps, cutting through the heavy quiet like tiny sunbeams. The door opened just a crack, and Emma's small voice whispered, "Rosa, can we come in?" Rosa bent down and managed a gentle, tired smile. "Come, sweethearts. Your daddy will be happy to have you near." Noah and Emma entered the room like two little lanterns. Noah led the way, the soles of his sneakers tapping softly on the wooden floor. Emma cradled a folded paper against her chest, holding it as carefully as if it were fragile treasure. They pulled their small chairs close to the bed. Emma unfolded her drawing with great care and lifted it toward Ethan. "Daddy, look, I drew you." The picture was messy and uneven, but the face she'd drawn was smiling, glowing even, so different from the still, pale man lying in the bed. Ethan felt something burn behind his eyes. Noah swung his legs and launched into a stream of stories, words tumbling out like he was racing time. "I scored 2 goals today, Daddy. My teacher said I'm improving a lot. And I solved the hardest math problem in class." His voice faltered as he looked at his father's unmoving face. "I know you can't hear me, but I want to tell you anyway, so you won't feel lonely." Ethan wanted to gather them in his arms, wanted to whisper that he heard every syllable, that their tiny voices were carrying him through these awful days. But all he could do was let tears slip silently from the corner of his eyes, soaking into the pillow. Rosa noticed the tear. She didn't gasp, didn't panic. She only leaned close and whispered, soft words spoken to a man she believed couldn't hear. "Don't worry, Mr. Caldwell. I'll protect the children, I promise, no matter what." Her promise drifted through the room like a breath, yet landed inside Ethan like an oath carved into stone. As Rosa guided the kids out of the room, Ethan glimpsed Vanessa passing down the far hallway. Shopping bags draped from her arms, she laughed into her phone, bright, flirtatious, unmistakably speaking to Marcus. She didn't look toward the room, didn't ask about the children, didn't care whether her husband lived or died. At that moment, Ethan understood his path. He wouldn't just expose the betrayal, wouldn't just reclaim his life or protect his company. Before anything else, he would save the woman who had carried this broken household on her shoulders while her own heart was falling apart. He would save Rosa. And then, only then, would he save himself. The days that followed carried a heaviness that settled into every corner of the house, the kind only those who truly cared could sense. Ethan still lay motionless, but every time Rosa walked down the hall, he heard the trembling sighs she tried to swallow, the scrape of a chair, the slow, weighted footsteps of someone carrying too much grief. One late afternoon, as the sun slanted through the windows, he heard noises downstairs. Rosa was on the phone, her voice tight and uneven, like someone running out of breath. "Mom, I sold the TV. I got $1,200. A pause. "I sold the laptop, too. They gave me $3,500. Her voice cracked, pain slicing through every word. "Your jewelry. They only gave me $3,300. Altogether, I have $9,000. I'm still short $171,000. She stifled a sob, failed, and broke down. "I know, Mom. I know it's impossible. But I can't watch Sophia die. I can't." Ethan shut his eyes, chest aching. Betrayal had crushed him, but Rosa's despair hollowed him in a way nothing else ever had. That evening, Vanessa strutted down the hall, her voice sharp and glinting like a blade. "If Ethan stays unresponsive, we can apply for legal guardianship. If he's declared incapacitated, Marcus, we can control everything." A cold laugh cut through the air. "And after that, we'll know exactly what to do." When her footsteps faded, Rosa finally entered Ethan's room. Her eyes were swollen, her shoulders trembling under the weight of fear and exhaustion. Ethan couldn't stay silent any longer. "Rosa?" The whisper sliced through the quiet, and she nearly screamed. She staggered back, hand covering her mouth. "Mr. Caldwell? Oh my God, you're awake?" "Please," Ethan murmured, voice weak but unwavering. "Don't tell anyone. No one can know." Rosa shook so hard the towel slipped from her fingers. But how? When—" "I've heard everything," Ethan said, turning his gaze toward her as much as his stiff neck allowed. "I heard about Sophia, about the diagnosis, about you selling everything." Rosa burst into tears. "I didn't want to trouble you. You're already suffering." "Rosa," Ethan interrupted gently but firmly. "Tomorrow, you will receive $180,000. I'll pay for everything." Her legs gave out, and she collapsed beside his bed, clutching his hands with shaking fingers. Tears fell onto his skin, hot and desperate. "No, I can't accept that. I can't." "You cared for my children like a real mother," Ethan said, voice rough but resolute. "You gave them love their own mother never bothered to offer. Let me save your daughter." Rosa lowered her forehead onto his shoulder and cried, no longer holding anything back. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling, for the first time since the crash, that he wasn't alone in this brutal world. In that quiet, devastating moment, a silent alliance formed between them, an unspoken vow that they would save each other. The warmth of Rosa's tears on his shoulder still lingered, refusing to fade, and that moment shifted something deep inside Ethan. He was no longer just a broken man lying in bed. He had purpose now, a reason to rise again. And to protect Rosa and the children, he had to begin by dragging every buried truth into the light. The next morning, after Rosa left to take the kids to school, Ethan whispered into his phone, calling Harold Briggs, a private investigator he had worked with years earlier. Briggs was terse, gruff, with the kind of eyes that seemed to read lies like open books. "My plan is simple," Ethan murmured, voice low so no one could overhear. "I need cameras and microphones everywhere Vanessa might go, especially her office and the living room. No one can know." Briggs didn't ask why. "I'll be there in 2 hours." And he was, silent, unobtrusive, moving through the house like a shadow. Rosa assumed he was a technician checking the security system, never suspecting the truth. Only Ethan understood that from that moment on, the house would begin telling secrets. That afternoon, Ethan contacted Olivia Chen, a razor-sharp forensic auditor whose work the company had used in high-risk cases. Olivia wasn't warm, but she was brilliant. "Ethan?" She sounded stunned. "They said you were unconscious." "And I need it to stay that way," Ethan replied. "I need you to audit everything, every account Marcus and Vanessa have touched." Olivia didn't hesitate. "I'll start now." 3 days later, she sent a confidential report. Nearly $1.8 million siphoned into 8 different accounts over the course of a year, all approved by Marcus, all shared with Vanessa. But the final note was what froze Ethan's blood. "I believe your Tesla's brake system was tampered with. I compared maintenance logs to garage footage. There is clear evidence of sabotage." Ethan went still. Marcus hadn't just betrayed him. He had tried to kill him. For money, for Vanessa, for everything Ethan had built. Meanwhile, Rosa was taking Sophia to the hospital. That tiny girl endured treatments far harsher than any child should. Yet in every video Rosa sent, Sophia tried to smile, brave, bright, heartbreakingly strong. When Noah and Emma were finally allowed to visit, the 3 children embraced like pieces of a puzzle, finding each other. Emma gifted Sophia her old doll, cleaned with care. Noah told stories about soccer. Sophia proudly showed them her hospital wristband like a badge of honor. Watching from the phone Rosa brought to him, Ethan saw something he had never seen so clearly. They were a family, not by blood, by something stronger, unconditional love. For the first time in weeks, Ethan wasn't alive only for the truth he needed to expose. He was alive for them, for the family he never knew his heart had been waiting for. The warmth of the children's hugs and the memory of Rosa's tears from the night before still lingered in the air, soft but powerful, as though refusing to fade. Ethan knew that tenderness was only the quiet before the storm, and he was ready for the storm. The next morning, the mansion felt heavy, tense, the kind of silence that precedes a seismic shift. Ethan lay still, but there was nothing weak inside him, only sharp focus. When Dr. Bennett's familiar footsteps echoed down the hall, Ethan exhaled slowly. The doctor opened the door, their eyes locking. "It's time," he whispered. Ethan nodded once. Dr. Bennett raised his voice, letting it echo loudly enough to reach every corner of the house. "Ethan, Ethan, if you can hear me, try to open your eyes." And Ethan opened them, fully, clearly, unmistakably alive. A gasp sounded from downstairs. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Vanessa burst into the room like a whirlwind of fake panic, hair tousled just enough to look dramatic, breathless, eyes wide. "Ethan, oh my God, you're awake? I was so worried, But she stopped, because Ethan wasn't looking at her with confusion or weakness. He was looking at her like a man who had witnessed everything. Her mask slipped for a fraction of a second, fear flashing across her face. "Vanessa," he said quietly, "I've heard everything." "Everything? What are you talking about?" she stammered. Ethan didn't answer with words. He pressed play. Her own voice filled the room. "$5 million in life insurance, Marcus. We just need to be patient." Vanessa jerked backward as if slapped. No, Ethan, that's fake. Someone edited." But the next clip cut her off. "Getting rid of the kids and of Ethan. Once it's over, we'll be free." She stumbled, her breath catching, her fingers clawing at the air. "Ethan!" she shrieked. "You're trying to ruin me. I'll sue you." "Prenup," Ethan said softly. She froze mid-step. "You remember the terms," he continued. "Infidelity, fraud, criminal intent, any one of them, and you get nothing." Her face twisted into something savage. "You can't do this. I'm your wife. This house is—" "Security!" 2 guards appeared instantly. Vanessa screamed, kicking, clawing at the air as they escorted her out. "Ethan, you'll pay for this? I'll destroy you? Let go of me." Her voice echoed down the hall, then faded, swallowed by the silence she left behind. As the door clicked shut, the room seemed to inhale again. Lighter, cleaner, free. Then small footsteps came racing in. Noah crashed against Ethan first, sobbing. "Daddy, you're back!" Emma clung to his arm, crying and smiling through tears. Ethan held them both, arms trembling with relief and overwhelming love. At the doorway, Rosa stood with her hands over her mouth, eyes shimmering. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. For the first time, she saw him awake, not just physically, but fully, fiercely alive. And for the first time, Ethan knew with absolute certainty he had finally come home. After Vanessa was dragged out of the room and her screams dissolved into silence, Ethan felt as though the entire world had been washed clean. But the relief didn't last long. One final task remained, one that could not be postponed. The next morning, after the kids were at school and Rosa took Sophia to her checkup, Ethan called Briggs and Olivia, asking them to bring all documented evidence to the Westchester Police Department. He went there himself in the wheelchair Dr. Bennett prepared, his eyes steady with unshakable resolve. When the officer on duty heard everything, from the tampered Tesla brakes to the $1.8 million embezzled to the plan to declare him incompetent, his expression grew dark. "We will take immediate action, Mr. Caldwell," he said. "This isn't just fraud, it's attempted murder." That same day, Marcus was arrested at the company office. Vanessa was handcuffed as she stepped out of an upscale boutique, still shouting in indignation. Ethan wasn't present at either arrest. He didn't need to see them anymore. Justice spoke for him. In the days that followed, Ethan spent nearly all his time with Sophia and Rosa. He attended every chemotherapy session, sitting beside Rosa in the cold hospital waiting rooms, where harsh white light reflected off linoleum floors. Strangely, the pain around them didn't push them apart. It pulled them closer. One afternoon, while Sophia received treatment and the machines hummed in steady rhythm, Rosa shared a part of her past she had always kept tucked away. "I had a little happy family once," she murmured, eyes gazing far beyond the room. "My husband worked construction. He was gentle, always tired, but always smiling. Every evening he'd pick Sophia up and tell her stories. Her breath trembled. Then, one day the scaffolding collapsed. He never came home. Ethan didn't speak. He simply placed his hand gently over hers, hesitant but genuine. Rosa startled slightly, then turned her hand and held his, as if it happened naturally, inevitably. The moment was small, but it throbbed with unspoken confession. Sometimes they laughed at the smallest things, like when Ethan dropped his coffee in the hospital lobby, or when Rosa tried to tell a serious story but ended up laughing at her own voice. In the midst of pain, those tiny laughs felt like stars flickering into existence. One evening, as they walked toward the parking lot, Sophia slipped her hand into Ethan's and asked, "Uncle Ethan, when are you going to marry my mom?" Ethan almost dropped the car keys. Rosa flushed red and scolded softly, "Sophia, don't say such things." But Ethan didn't laugh it away, because in that moment he finally recognized a truth that had been quietly growing inside him. He loved Rosa, not because she saved him, not because she was strong, but because her kindness made the entire world feel gentler, just by being in it. The good news arrived on what started as an ordinary morning in the hospital, but the moment Dr. Porter entered the room, her expression made it clear. Today was anything but ordinary. Rosa rose instantly from the plastic chair, her fingers lacing together, trembling slightly. Ethan leaned forward in his wheelchair, his heart pounding deep and steady. Dr. Porter opened the file, glanced at Sophia, who was busily drawing a pink cat, and smiled, the warmest smile they had ever seen on her usually composed face. "I have wonderful news for all of you," she said gently. "The latest results show Sophia is now in remission. The cancer is gone." For 2 full seconds, no one made a sound. Then Rosa broke, covering her mouth as sobs escaped. Sophia lifted her head, eyes wide. "So, I'm not sick anymore?" "Not anymore, sweetheart, Dr. Porter replied, kneeling to hug her. Ethan blinked several times, his vision blurring. Months of fear, tears, exhaustion, prayers whispered through clenched hands, all of it condensed into that one miraculous moment. That evening, Ethan decided the news deserved a celebration, something small, something intimate, something unforgettable. He spent the afternoon arranging the backyard, stringing soft golden lights across the trees, placing a small table covered in a white cloth at the center of the grass, surrounding it with tiny jars glowing with candlelight. Lavender from the garden released a faint, soothing scent into the air. When Rosa stepped outside, she stopped in her tracks. The lights cast a warm halo over her hair, and Ethan had to breathe deeply to steady the rush in his chest. "Ethan, all this..." "For who?" she whispered. "For us," he answered. "For what today means." The children were seated at a small side table, whispering excitedly. Sophia, Noah, and Emma held hands, sensing something special was about to unfold. Rosa turned to Ethan, ready to begin the simple dinner, but he took her hand, gently, almost reverently. Her breath hitched. "Rosa," Ethan began, his voice low and steady. "The day I opened my eyes and saw you there, I knew my life would never be the same. You saved my children when their own mother turned away. You saved me when I thought my world had collapsed." Tears gathered in Rosa's eyes. Ethan sank to one knee, the golden lights casting long shadows across the grass. "I love the way you're strong but gentle. I love your kindness, how it softens everything around you. I love the way you fight for your daughter without an ounce of fear." He opened a velvet box holding a simple, elegant ring. "For all these reasons, Rosa Martinez, will you marry me?" Rosa burst into tears and threw her arms around him. Yes, Ethan, I will." The children screamed in delight, rushing forward to hug both of them. Sophia wrapped her arms around Ethan's neck and shouted, "I knew you were going to do that." 6 months later, they held a small wedding in the same garden, the place where they had become a family long before signing any paper. Rosa wore a simple white dress. Ethan smiled more that day than he had in years. When it came time for Ethan's vows, he took Sophia's hand and knelt to her level. "There's one more thing I want to do today," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I want to ask you and your mom if you'll let me adopt you. I want to be your father, not just in my heart, but legally." Sophia blinked, then smiled, radiant, breathtaking. "So, I can call you Dad for real?" Ethan nodded, tears escaping. Sophia hugged him tightly. "I love you, Dad." And in that moment, Ethan knew his life had finally come full circle. 5 years had passed quietly, the way gentle mornings drift through a lifetime. The house where Ethan and Rosa once weathered storms now brimmed with sunlight, its wide windows gathering warm golden rays on the wooden floors. After everything, life had finally returned what it owed them: peace. Noah, now 11, tall and strong, had become the star of his school's baseball team. At every game, he searched for Ethan's eyes in the stands, still the safest place in his world. Emma, 9, soft and bright like morning light, practiced ballet every afternoon and had earned a spot in the spring gala. And Sophia, 13, the little warrior who once fought death, was now an honors student dreaming of becoming a pediatrician. "I want to help kids like me," she always said, her eyes glowing. Rosa had become an elementary school teacher, a dream she once thought impossible. She entered the classroom every morning with a gentle smile, grateful for the life she now lived. He had already buried one life once before, his first wife, Isabella, taken by illness far too soon, and he refused to be blind to danger again. The foundation funded treatments for children battling cancer, and each smile he saw there reminded him of Sophia, the small, fierce girl who beat the odds. One quiet Sunday morning, the house smelled of pancake batter. Ethan flipped the first pancake, slightly burnt, prompting the kids to erupt in laughter. Rosa adjusted his apron, shaking her head. "I don't understand how you still can't flip pancakes after 5 years." "That's exactly why I need you here," he whispered, making her blush. Just then the doorbell rang. Dr. Bennett arrived with a box of pastries, his hair grayer, but his smile unchanged. The children ran to him, embracing him like family. After breakfast, while the kids played, Ethan helped Rosa clean the kitchen. In the cabinet, he spotted an old notebook hidden behind a stack of cookbooks. Its edges were worn, the pages yellowing. He opened it. Rosa's handwriting flowed across the page, delicate and trembling, like a prayer whispered on a night she thought no one would hear. "I ask God for only 3 things: health for my daughter, a roof over our heads, and someone who will love us sincerely." Ethan's chest tightened. Those words carved warmth into him so deeply, it almost hurt. He closed the notebook, walked toward Rosa, her hands still in the soapy water, doing what she had always done, caring for others first. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, placing the notebook gently on the counter. "Rosa," he murmured, "you weren't given these things as charity. You were given what you deserve." Rosa turned, eyes shimmering, but this time with completeness, not sorrow. "I never thought I'd have a family like this," she whispered. Ethan brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "We weren't given to each other. We were found by each other." From the living room came the laughter of the children, ringing through the air like a summer melody. Sunlight glowed against the drawings they had taped to the wall, messy, colorful, full of love. A family built from broken pieces and restored by kindness and courage.